Hey y'all, it's April with The Possible Diet. Today we are making the soup from Reddit. There is this slow cooker creamy tortellini spinach and chicken tomato soup that kind of blew up on Reddit. And I made it with a friend of mine over Zoom a couple of weeks ago. It was super fun. I tried to film it with like my nephew and it was a disaster. So I'm just re-recording this so that I can walk you through because it turned out great. Tortellini is very high carb, as you can imagine. So I'm making a couple of adjustments to the recipe just to reduce the carbs a little. So it's not low carb. If you truly want this soup to be low carb, all you have to do is swap out the tortellini or the ravioli for cauliflower and like chunks of frozen cauliflower, and that'll make the soup low carb. But if you are craving tortellini and pasta and fettuccine alfredo, this soup is a great way to kind of like knock that craving out for a lower carb bang. And the way that I'm doing this is, again, you want to read all of your labels. Read labels, get curious. I hope that that's what I'm helping you do on this channel, is just be more aware of the food that you're putting in your body, because you might not be aware that the ramen that you're eating that you love so much, that you think is healthy because there's tons of vegetables and it's broth and it's organic, has like 85 grams of carbs a serving. So just looking on the back of the product that you're looking at will tell you a lot about it. These grilled chicken and mozzarella ravioli only have 23 grams of carbs per serving, 1 gram of fiber, so net carbs, but they have 15 grams of protein. And one serving is a cup, which is a lot of ravioli, actually. So, and certainly the amount that's like in this. So this soup is not necessarily low calorie, but it's very, very hearty. Consider it a treat. I love it, and I eat it when I need something that gives me the same kind of comfort as like fettuccine alla vodka, for a much lower carb bang. So the prep for this is a little bit weird. You can tell I've used this recipe a lot. It's like totally stained. So you want to start with 1 medium chopped onion. The recipe says yellow. I use white or yellow, whatever I have. And you want to add a 1/3 cup of all-purpose flour. Now, I'm using Navajo Pride flour, which I saw at my local Whole Foods. It was really nice to see this flour. It's grown using the natural resources of the Navajo people in the Four Corners region of the American Southwest. And even though it's not organic, like I was super, super happy to see it, and I immediately wanted to take it home and use it and support you know, a business that values self-sufficiency for Native Americans. So I thought that was great. So you add the flour. I don't recommend skimping on the flour in this because of the carbs. It's really negligible when you think about how much soup this makes. And then 3 tablespoons of olive oil. This mixture is gonna look a little weird. You know, my protein scoop is 2 tablespoons, so I just kind of eyeball it. And then basil, garlic, and tomato paste. So the tomato paste is going to be 2 tablespoons of, sorry, let me start with a tablespoon of dried basil. And this looks so pretty in the soup when it cooks. If you use fresh basil, I would just recommend using like twice as much, but dried is definitely better. And then 2 tablespoons of tomato paste. I'm a little heavy-handed with my tomato paste because half of it stays in the scoop. And what you're gonna do is mix this, you know, weird concoction up, and then you microwave it for 5 minutes until the onions are soft, stirring like every 90 seconds. So really, you microwave it for 3 90-second increments and then 1 30-second increment, which is a little strange. I like to kind of like mix a little bit as I go. Not every ingredient, but a little bit. And then 2 cloves of garlic minced, I use roasted garlic in a paste in a tube. You know, I love these tubes. They make cooking so handy. And I just eyeball like what a couple of cloves of garlic would look like. Frost enough cupcakes, you get a sense of like, garlic is like the end of your thumb in a clove. I like the roasted because it just sort of adds this like mellow undertone that is nice in a stew or a soup. I just started using it and I have to say I'm a fan. So add the onions, flour, basil, garlic, tomato paste, and olive oil. And then I'm gonna microwave this for 90 seconds, give it a stir, do that 2 more times, and then we're gonna put this in our Instant Pot or slow cooker. I have a 3 quart Instant Pot, so I do reduce the chicken broth a little bit. I'm gonna reconstitute my chicken broth now. I use Better Than Bouillon whenever I don't have a container. I find it works just as great. Anything that can save me 5 minutes, make my life easier, I'm a fan of. All right, I'll be right back. Okay, so we have our microwave mixture. It looks kind of weird, but it smells amazing. And the onions are translucent. All those flavors are going. We're going to put this in our slow cooker. And I cook this in the slow cooker. I actually don't use the Instant Pot for this because I find the chicken thighs cook great. I use a pressure cooker function in the Instant Pot anytime I'm making like beef or pork, but chicken thighs actually do really, really well just on slow cooking for like 4 hours. So we're gonna add the mixture to the slow cooker, and then I add chicken thighs. This recipe calls for 1 to 1.5 pounds of chicken thighs. I use 1.5 pounds minimum. You can go up to 2 pounds if you want. I know I should be like rinsing this chicken before I put it in here, but I'm just putting it in here because it's going to be cooking. Again, anything that makes it faster and easier. And you're not going to cut up the chicken thighs. You're actually going to cook them in here whole. And then sorry, you're not going to cut up the chicken thighs when you put them in here. You're going to just put them in here whole, kind of toss them all around with this mixture that's in here. And then the recipe calls for 4 cups of broth. I have 3 cups because I have a pretty small slow cooker. And I find that that ratio just works fine. A little bit of that Better Than Bouillon hanging out at the bottom. And then I don't add salt because when I'm using bouillon, it tends to be pretty salty already. I do add the pepper. So it calls for a 1/2 teaspoon of fresh ground pepper. Usually just like add a few grinds at this point, and then I'll add more once it's done cooking at the end. Okay, and then before I forget, 2 cans of petite diced tomatoes. And again, I use the no salt added in these just to keep my salt down because I'm using this bouillon and it's pretty concentrated. And you can see once I add these 2 cans of tomatoes, my Instant Pot is going to be full. All right. Now, because my Instant Pot is a small one, I'm going to finish the soup in kind of like a Dutch oven pot on the stove, and I'll show you how to do that. If you have a big Instant Pot, you'll be able to mix everything in. So when you see me cooking it on the stove, just do that in your slow cooker. Sorry. You're going to cook this for on low for 4 to 6 hours or on high for 3 to 4 hours. I'm going to cook this on high for 4 hours while I go get the Parmesan cheese that's going to go in it later that I thought I had in my fridge, but I actually don't. Okay, we are back. It's been 4 hours. Our soup looks really, really good. I am finishing this on the stove because I have a very tiny crock pot that will not, that's messy. I have a very tiny crock pot that will not let me fit everything that needs to go in here. So here's a trick. You have your cream. You can use a cup of cream or a cup of half and half. I use the cream because it's good. Take your cream. If it's not already at room temperature, you should heat it in the microwave. But if you are doing this like me, because you have a small crock pot, you can put it in your crock pot to warm up so that it doesn't curdle when you add it in here. Now, the trick now is that you have to take the chicken out. So fish the chicken out. I like tongs. And then chop up the chicken or shred it, those chicken thighs, so that you can return it back to the soup. So I just have this soup. What I do is I shred the chicken while I'm cooking the raviolis, and then I go ahead and add it back in. Now, to completely reduce the carbs, just making sure there's no more chicken in there. To completely reduce the carbs in this dish, you could pass on the pasta completely and use chopped up cauliflower instead. I actually do both. I add ravioli, just the lowest carb ravioli that you can find. Check your nutrition facts on the back. I think I looked at one tortellini that was like 52 grams of carbs per cup. It was kind of insane. And this one is only 23 with 1 gram of fiber, so net 22. So that's pretty good per cup, especially for pasta. Most pasta is about 30 grams of carbs a cup. So I add both chopped up cauliflower because it doesn't really have much flavor and it adds vitamins and nutrients and thickens the soup up without adding a lot of calories or carbs. So I think it's a great trade-off. And then add your raviolis if you are using them. These are going to cook for about 10 minutes in here. You can use frozen, just make sure you cook it like a little bit longer. You can test it when it's done. And the other thing that's nice is that, you know, Reddit agrees, this soup is effing delicious. So if you're struggling to kind of like find something that you can eat and your family can eat, and they're used to carbs their whole life and they don't believe you when you're, you know, saying that it's better for your health to kind of like manage your carb intake, just make it easy on yourself. So go ahead and add the pasta in. After the pasta, you're gonna add 3 cups of spinach. I just use baby spinach, like salad spinach, but if you have real spinach, you have access to real spinach, feel free to use that. I'm not really measuring this spinach, I'm just kind of like assuming this is close to 3 or 4 cups. Pack it on in there. It'll cook down, so don't worry if it's really, really big. As you can see from looking at this, if you had a 6-quart slow cooker, you know, there'd be more than enough room for all this additional stuff. Now, while this is heating up and cooking down, I'm going to chop up the chicken. Store it in my handy ravioli container. my tiny counter space. I also like using just meat scissors. That's what I call these. It makes it easy to cut the chicken up. But you can use 2 forks to shred it. I just like chunks of chicken rather than shreds of chicken. That's why I cut it. But if you like shreds, feel free to shred it up. It doesn't change the flavor of the dish. Once your soup is cooked down and your tortellini are almost done, go ahead and dump that chicken in it. Let the tortellinis cook for about 5 more minutes here. And then I'll add the whipping cream, Parmesan cheese, a cup of whipping cream, half a cup of Parmesan cheese. You can swap out half and half for the whipping cream if you want to lower the fat. And then we'll be ready to serve our soup. All right, our raviolis are al dente, our spinach is cooked, our cauliflower is al dente. So now we're ready to add half a cup of Parmesan cheese, which you can leave out if you want to reduce the fat, but I think it's worth it for the flavor. And then our cup of warmed cream. It's really important that your cream be warm, so that it doesn't have to be like boiling or anything, but it should be warm so that it doesn't curdle when it goes into the hot broth. And again, I like the cream because it really just takes the soup to the next level. And you can also opt to serve Parmesan cheese on top of the soup instead of mixed in it. But again, like it's when I followed this recipe, it was just it was really good. And that is it. It is that easy. It keeps really well. But it didn't last in my house except, for like more than a couple days. So the soup, thanks to Reddit. Enjoy.